It started with something small, so small I almost missed it. We were driving home one evening, her hand lazily scrolling through the playlist on her phone. A soft guitar intro played through the speakers, followed by a voice I didn't recognize. I glanced at her. "You like this song?" I asked. She nodded without looking up. "Yeah." "Why?" I frowned. "You hate country music." She laughed, but it felt off. "I don't hate it." That was a lie. I'd known Melanie for 10 years, married for 5. We'd had the same dumb argument 100 times, me trying to play a country song, her rolling her eyes and skipping it before the chorus hit. And now, she was humming along like it was her favorite tune. I let it go. It was just a song, right? People change. But it wasn't just the music. She started spending more time on her phone. I don't mean the usual mindless scrolling, no, this was different. She was glued to it, fingers tapping rapidly, face tilted away when I walked by. If I asked who she was texting, she'd say something vague. Just work stuff. She started dressing differently too. Tighter jeans. Lower tops. Perfume I hadn't smelled on her in years. At first, I chalked it up to her just wanting to feel good about herself. But the effort seemed intentional. Like she was dressing for someone. Then came the sudden schedule changes. Late meetings. Last-minute girls' nights. "Ugh, babe, I'm exhausted," she'd say, tossing her bag down after coming home late. "I swear, they don't pay me enough for this shit." Maybe I was paranoid. Work was stressful. People pick up new habits. I had no real proof of anything. But the feeling wouldn't go away. A week later, I borrowed her car. Mine was at the shop, and she'd taken an Uber to work, so I grabbed her keys and headed out. The engine started, and automatically, her phone connected to the Bluetooth. Music filled the car, her playlist. It wasn't hers. Song after song, I realized I didn't recognize any of them. The artists, the genres, they were completely different from what she usually listened to. It was all country, a little rock, some classic throwbacks. The kind of mix someone else might have made for her. That gnawing feeling in my gut twisted into something sharper. I pulled up to a red light and tapped through the playlist. That's when I saw the name. 4M Red Heart. The light turned green, but I didn't move. The car behind me honked, and I snapped out of it, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Was that me? I swallowed hard, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. But the truth was already whispering in my ear. No, it wasn't for me. That night, I tested the waters. "Hey, Mel," I said, keeping my tone casual. "I borrowed your car today." She barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, yeah? How's your car doing?" "Still in the shop." I paused. "I liked your playlist." That got her attention. Her head snapped up, eyes wide for just a second before she masked it with a smile. "Oh. Yeah, I've been listening to new stuff." A lie. A bad one. "Oh yeah? 4M Red Heart, huh?" I watched her face carefully. For a split second she froze. It was quick, barely noticeable, but I caught it. Then she forced a laugh and rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you scared me for a second." "That's for me, dummy." "M for Melanie." I smiled, pretending to buy it. Makes sense. But it didn't. Because Melanie never used emojis like that. And Melanie didn't even like country music. That night, as she showered, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand. Locked, of course. I wasn't proud of it, but something deep in my gut told me I wouldn't like what I found. And I was right. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I paid attention to her phone habits. Who she texted. When she smiled at the screen. The way she tilted it away. The name that kept popping up in her notifications, but she never answered when I was around. And then, a slip-up. She was in the kitchen, humming a song I now recognize from 4M Red Heart. She reached for her phone to check a message, and for the first time, she forgot to turn the screen away. I caught a name. Jason. My stomach clenched. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to stay calm. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was losing my mind over nothing. But deep down I knew. This was just the beginning. It was Jason. I knew it the moment I saw his name pop up on her screen. A casual message, just a preview. But that single glimpse was enough to send my stomach twisting into knots. I didn't ask about it right away. I needed more. Something solid. Accusations without proof would only lead to gaslighting, excuses, and more lies. I'd seen it happen to others, guys who questioned their wives, only to be made to feel like jealous, controlling husbands. I wouldn't be one of them. So I waited. I paid attention. I noticed the small things that, on their own, wouldn't mean much but together painted an ugly picture. The way she angled her phone away from me when she texted. The new habit of putting her phone face down on the table. How she always seemed to be in a better mood after spending time, at work, or with the girls. The playlist wasn't the only change. There were other details. New lingerie, tags still attached, stuffed in the back of her drawer. A different brand of body wash in the shower, one that smelled nothing like the one she'd always used. The sudden obsession with fitness, hitting the gym at odd hours when she never cared about working out before. She was slipping, little by little. And I was paying attention to every single thing. It was a Friday night when the first real crack appeared. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing, but she wasn't watching. Her phone buzzed, and she grabbed it fast, too fast. I caught a flash of the screen. A message. Jason, can't wait to see you. I didn't react. I acted like I didn't see it, but my heart was hammering. Instead of confronting her, I decided to push just a little. You seem distracted, I said casually. She blinked, then forced a smile. Huh? No, just tired. Who was that? I nodded toward her phone. She hesitated for half a second, just a breath, but it was enough. Oh, just work stuff. Sarah texting about the project. Sarah. Right. The same coworker she suddenly started hanging out with when her late nights at the office became more frequent. I could have let it go. Could have let her believe I bought the lie. But I wanted to see her squirm. Oh, cool. Let's call her real quick. I reached for my phone. I need to ask her something about. No! Melanie cut me off, her voice sharper than she meant it to be. We locked eyes. She swallowed, then forced a chuckle. I mean, babe, it's late. She'll think it's weird. I smiled. It's just a text. I'm sure she's still up. The way she gripped her phone like a lifeline told me everything I needed to know. That night, while she was asleep, I made my move. She was careful, but not careful enough. Her password hadn't changed. She probably thought I'd never check. I slid my thumb over the screen, heart pounding in my chest. Messages, calls, photos, I didn't know where to start. But then, I saw his name. Jason. I clicked. And my entire world cracked open. The texts weren't just friendly. They were flirty. Dirty. Full of inside jokes and pet names. Messages about their nights together, about how much they missed each other. Jason, you looked so good tonight. That dress was a tease. Melanie, your bad winky face. Jason, wish you were here. I hate sleeping alone. Melanie, me too, soon red heart. That emoji again. The same one from Forum red heart. I kept scrolling. Weeks. Months. There it was, laid out in front of me. Late night. Work meetings. Weekend. Girls' trips. All of it was a lie. And then I saw it, a picture. A mirror selfie in a hotel room, the sheets messy behind her. Wearing the same lingerie I'd found in her drawer. Not for me. My stomach churned. My hands trembled. I felt sick. I locked the phone, placed it back exactly as I found it, and lay there staring at the ceiling. She was right beside me, sleeping soundly. Like she hadn't just set fire to our entire life. The next day, I played dumb. I needed to see how far she would go to protect her lie. Hey babe, I said over breakfast. Do you know a Jason? She barely flinched. Jason? I think there's a guy at work named Jason. Why? That was an answer too fast, too rehearsed. She already had her alibi. No reason. I shrugged. I just saw a text pop up on your phone yesterday. Thought maybe it was someone I knew. She laughed, waving it off. Oh, probably just a work thing. Lies. All of it. I wasn't done. That night I followed her. She said she was meeting Sarah for drinks. Gave me the whole story, where, what time, when she'd be home. She kissed me before leaving. Told me she loved me. I let her go. Then I grabbed my keys and tailed her. She didn't go to the bar. She drove across town to a small hotel off the highway. Parked. Walked in like she'd been there before. 10 minutes later, Jason arrived. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers ached. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I don't know how long I sat there. Watching. Waiting. Letting the reality sink in. And then, finally, I drove home. I didn't need to see anything else. I already knew. She was fucking him. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last few months. Every late night. Every excuse. Every fucking lie she fed me with that same sweet voice, the same lips that kissed me goodbye before running off to him. By the time she slipped into bed hours later, I wasn't even pretending anymore. My back was to her, my body stiff. I could hear her breathing, steady and unbothered. Like she hadn't just been in some cheap hotel room, tangled up with him. She didn't say a word. She thought she got away with it. The next morning, I played along. Let her kiss me. Let her hum as she made coffee. Let her smile at me like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I wasn't looking at my wife anymore. I was looking at a liar. A cheater. A woman I didn't recognize. I could have exploded right then. I wanted to. But I had a better idea. I was going to break her the way she broke me. I spent the entire day preparing. She thought I was at work, but I wasn't. I was gathering everything, screenshots of her texts, bank statements showing her hotel charges, and even her location history. Technology is a beautiful thing when you want to catch a liar. But I needed more than that. I needed him. Jason. So I did what any man with nothing left to lose would do. I called him. It wasn't hard to get his number. I found it right in her messages. I dialed, and when he answered, I didn't say anything at first. Just let the silence stretch. Hello? His voice was cautious. I finally spoke. You don't know me, Jason, but I know you. A pause. Then, who is this? I'm Melanie's husband. Silence. Then a sharp exhale. Look, man. No. You look. I snapped. I know everything. I know where you met. I know when. I know you were with her last night. Fuck, he muttered under his breath. She tell you she was married? I asked, already knowing the answer. Another pause. Then, yeah. Rage burned in my chest. He knew. He fucking knew. And you still fucked her? I said flatly. He hesitated. Look, man, Save it. I don't give a shit about your excuses. I just need you to do one thing. What? I smiled. Be at our house tonight at 8. Jason hesitated. What? Why the fuck would I? You owe me that much. I cut him off. You already fucked my wife. The least you can do is come hear what she really thinks about you. Another long silence. I could hear him breathing. Thinking. Then, finally. Fine. Perfect. The hours dragged by. I waited, my body vibrating with tension. She was due home at 7. Jason at 8. At 6:55, Melanie walked through the door like nothing was wrong. She dropped her bag by the couch, stretched, and sighed. God, I'm exhausted, she said, walking over to me. Long day. I stared at her. This woman. My wife. I had loved her. Trusted her. Built a fucking life with her. And she stood there, lying to my face without a second thought. I felt sick. She noticed my expression and frowned. You okay? I smiled. I'm great. She raised an eyebrow. Okay. I checked my watch. 7:58. Almost time. I leaned against the counter, folding my arms. Hey, babe, you remember Jason? Her face went pale. Just for a second, but I caught it. Jason? She echoed, feigning confusion. Yeah, I said, tilting my head. The guy from your messages. From the hotel last night. Dead silence. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, like she'd forgotten how to speak. Then, just as quickly, she forced out a laugh. What the hell are you talking about? I smiled. There it was. The first lie of the night. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Melanie's eyes flicked to the door, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. I stepped back, gesturing grandly. Why don't you get that? She didn't move. The bell rang again. I grinned. Don't be rude, Mel. She swallowed and walked stiffly to the door. When she opened it, Jason stood on the other side, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Her breath hitched. What are you doing here? Jason glanced at me, then back at her. Your husband invited me. She turned slowly, eyes wide. You. That's right. I cut in smoothly. I figured if you're going to lie, why not do it in front of him, too? Jason looked uncomfortable. Look, man, I don't know what you're. I held up a hand. Shut up. He did. I turned back to her. Go on, Melanie. Tell him. Tell him the same bullshit you were about to tell me. Her throat bobbed. She was panicking now, but she was still trying to think. Trying to find an escape. I don't know what's going on here, she finally said, her voice shaking just a little. Are you accusing me of something? I chuckled. You really want to do this? She lifted her chin, forcing confidence she didn't have. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. The screenshots lit up, each one more damning than the last. Her face strained of color. I held it up. This ring a bell? How about this one? I swiped. Or this? Or maybe this. Oh, look, it's you in that hotel room. She swayed on her feet like I'd punched her. Where did you get those? I laughed. Oh, so they're real? Jason ran a hand down his face. Jesus Christ. Melanie turned to him, desperate. Baby, I barked out a laugh. Baby? Right in front of me? Bold. Jason took a step back. You told me you were leaving him. I smirked. Oh, she told you that? Let me guess, it's already over. I just need time to tell him. That sound about right? Jason clenched his jaw. I turned back to my wife. So, Mel, was it worth it? Tears welled in her eyes. No. I cut her off. Save it. She reached for me. Please. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Jason took another step back. I'm out. I didn't sign up for this shit. I smirked. Guess the fantasy isn't so fun when reality shows up, huh? Jason didn't respond. He just turned and walked out. Melanie let out a choked sob. Please, I turned away. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was nothing. She was crying. Big, gasping sobs, the kind that would have broken me once. But now they meant nothing. Melanie stood there, her face streaked with tears, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looked small. Weak. Like a stranger in our home, in the life we built. Please, she whispered. Just talk to me. I didn't. I couldn't. I was staring at the woman who had shared my bed, my life, my everything, and she wasn't real. The Melanie I knew didn't exist. She never had. I turned away. Walked past her. Where are you going? she asked, voice shaking. I didn't answer. Just grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I needed air. I drove with no destination in mind, just gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. The city lights blurred past. I barely saw them. My thoughts were too loud. How long had she been lying to me? Had she ever loved me at all? Was our marriage just a long, drawn-out joke that only I wasn't in on? Every time I blinked I saw them. Her and Jason. In that hotel. In our bed. In my goddamn life. I pulled into an empty parking lot and turned off the car. The silence was deafening. That's when it hit me. This was real. My wife cheated on me. Lied to me. Made a fool out of me. And for what? Some asshole who walked away the second things got messy? I pressed my palms against my eyes, forcing back the rage boiling under my skin. I couldn't think straight. I wanted to scream. Break something. Burn our house down just to get rid of the memories. Instead, I sat there. Silent. Suffocating in my own thoughts. Hours passed before I went back home. When I walked through the door, she was still there. Sitting on the couch, hugging her knees like a child. The second she saw me, she scrambled up. I thought you weren't coming back, she said, voice raw. I ignored her. Walked past her. Talk to me, she begged. I turned, finally meeting her eyes. Why? She swallowed hard. No bullshit, Melanie. Why? She let out a shaky breath. I don't know. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't know? Tears welled in her eyes again. I wasn't happy. My jaw clenched. So, instead of talking to me, you fucked someone else? She flinched. It wasn't like that. I scoffed. Really? Because it looked exactly like that. Her lips trembled. It just happened. I shook my head. Nothing just happens. You made choices. Over and over again. You lied. Every day. To me. She wiped her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed again. Cold. Empty. You didn't mean to hurt me? Melanie, you burned our entire marriage to the ground. And for what? She didn't answer. Because there was no answer that could fix this. Nothing could fix this. For a long moment, we just stood there. Two strangers in the ruins of what used to be a marriage. Then she whispered, Can we fix this? I stared at her, and for the first time, I saw it. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she got caught. She never thought I'd find out. She thought she could keep living two lives, lying to my face, crawling into my bed after being in his. And now? Now she was scared. Not of losing me, but of losing the life she had with me. It hit me like a punch to the gut. She didn't love me. Not in the way I loved her. Not in the way a wife was supposed to love a husband. And suddenly, just like that, the grief was gone. The pain? Dull. The rage? Fading. I was done. I exhaled slowly. No. Her face crumpled. What? I met her eyes. Steady. Calm. Resolved. We can't fix this. She stepped forward. But Stop. I cut her off. We're done. Panic flashed across her face. Babe, please. We can go to therapy, we can. I shook my head. No, you can go to therapy. You can figure out why you destroyed your own marriage. But you're gonna do it alone. She choked out a sob. You're really leaving me? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I grabbed my bag, already packed. Took one last look at the woman who used to be my world. And then I walked out the door. And this time, I wasn't coming back. I didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at her. Not at the wreckage of the life I thought I had. The second I stepped outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Like the weight pressing on my chest for months had finally cracked and let me breathe again. I got in my car, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. My mind was still a war zone, Anger, relief, heartbreak, and something else. Something close to peace. Because I was done. And for the first time in a long time, I was free. I drove with no real destination, just a need to be away. The city lights blurred past me, the hum of the tires against the road the only sound in the car. For the first few miles, I kept expecting my phone to ring. For her to call, to text, to beg. But she didn't. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt it, the way something had snapped inside me. How there was no fixing this, no undoing what she did. She wasn't my problem anymore. And that thought? God, it felt good. I ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Paid cash for a room that smelled like cigarettes and regret. Tossed my bag on the floor and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. I should have been devastated. Broken. But all I felt was exhausted. Like my body was finally shutting down after running on fumes for months. I didn't dream that night. Just darkness. Deep and quiet. And when I woke up, something had shifted. I was okay. Not healed. Not whole. But okay. And that was enough. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. One to a lawyer. One to a locksmith. If she wanted to live in that house so badly, she could keep it. I didn't want it anymore. It wasn't home. It was just a place where my trust went to die. By noon, the divorce papers were filed. The locks were changed. And just like that, I had nothing tying me to her anymore. Except for one last thing. Closure. I went back one last time. Not to fight. Not to hear more excuses. Just to end it properly. When I walked through the door, she was sitting on the couch. She looked up at me, eyes red and puffy. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the table beside her. "You changed the locks?" she said quietly. I nodded. "Yeah." A bitter smile tugged at her lips. "You really hate me that much?" I exhaled slowly. "No, Mel. I just don't love you anymore." Her face crumpled, but I didn't feel guilty. Not anymore. I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the table. "Divorce papers. Sign them." She stared at it like it was a live grenade. "That's it," she whispered. "You just walk away." I met her eyes. "Yeah." Tears spilled over. "I fucked up." "You did." Her voice broke. "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it. And then I nodded. "Yeah. Someday." She let out a shaky breath, but I wasn't done. "I forgive you, Melanie," I said, voice calm. "But I'll never forget." And with that I turned and walked out for the last time. It's been a few months now. The divorce is final. The house is sold. Melanie is nothing more than a name I used to say in my sleep. And me? I'm better. Not perfect. Not healed. But better. People will tell you that betrayal makes you bitter. That it hardens you, turns you cold. Maybe that's true for some. But for me? It made me see. I used to think love was enough. That if you gave someone your heart, your loyalty, your everything, they'd do the same. But love isn't enough. Not when trust is gone. Melanie was my wife, my best friend, my world. And she still threw me away for something cheap and temporary. Not because I wasn't enough. But because she wasn't. And that's not on me. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt sometimes. That I don't still wake up expecting to hear her breathing beside me. That certain songs don't make my chest tighten. But pain is temporary. Growth is forever. I don't hate her. She doesn't deserve that kind of space in my head. But I also don't miss her. Because the man I am now? He doesn't look back. If you're reading this because you're in the middle of your own storm, hear me when I say this. You will survive. The pain won't kill you. The betrayal won't define you. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you're free. And when that day comes, you'll smile. Just like I did. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the story. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. See you soon.